What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, and this time for the new Ridley Scott film, All the Money in the World. All the Money in the World is directed by Ridley Scott, stars Michelle Williams, Mark Wahlberg, and Christopher Plummer. The film tells the true story of the kidnapping of John Paul Getty, the grandson of John Paul Getty, who was one of the richest men in the world in the 1970s. It tells the story from the point of view of John Paul, who is kidnapped, interacting with his kidnappers, but also Gail, his mother, interacting with John Paul Getty, trying to get this money, and Getty's sort of strongman, played by Mark Wahlberg, whose job it is to find John and get him away from these kidnappers without paying the ransom. Now, I know this film has a lot of news behind it in terms of the making and what happened and the fallout and the recasting and all of that. I don't want to get into that because I don't want to take that into account in the review of the film. The film is the film that was released in theaters. It doesn't matter what happened in production, what happened post-production. What happens is the movie that I watched and my review of that film. So, to start with, the performances in this film are really solid. I think Michelle Williams gives the best performance in the film, playing this distraught mother whose son has been kidnapped, yet she can't seem to find anyone to help her because everyone just assumes that she has all this money and that she can just pay the kidnappers if she really wanted to, when in reality she doesn't. Christopher Plummer does a great job playing this immensely wealthy man who is just so stubborn and controlling in every aspect of his life. And along with that, Wahlberg, who I think has probably the most bland character in the film, gives a solid performance. I'm a fan of Mark Wahlberg, and I think that he has genuinely the best dialogue sequence in this whole film, which is saying something. And then I think this film tells a very interesting story. It shows the other side of wealth. It shows that massive, insanely rich, sort of corrupted side where once you gain this absolute power, you're corrupted absolutely. And I think that that is the way that Getty was in his life. He was so wealthy and had so much power that he was not willing to give up any of it at any moment. And this film really showcased that well. And it also showed an interesting story from history that I didn't know. I never knew that there was this insanely wealthy oil tycoon whose grandson was kidnapped and he just refused to pay the ransom. And then they were forced to sort of take all these different routes to try and get this boy back to his mother. And I do have to give props to Ridley Scott, being as he reshot a bunch of the scenes in this film in 9 days, and this film still came out looking as good as it does. That being said, there is one shot in this film that is really terribly done where they just used CGI to put Christopher Plummer into a shot. It looks really bad. Luckily, there's just the one shot of it, but I thought that that one shot really pulled me out of the film. The big issues that I have with this film are related to the script, though, in that this is an extremely time-sensitive story. This is a boy who was kidnapped, and they're trying to get him back as quickly as possible, yet this film will just take liberties in jumping forward and backward in time, and it won't really let you know. There's one time jump that's very abrupt, but it lets you know, but then after that, it continuously will just jump forward months at a time, but you're never told until someone just sort of has an offhand comment, and you're like, oh, it's been that long now? But there was no script on the screen to let you know that there was nothing. You just had to figure it out because of what the characters were talking about, that it's all of a sudden been like 4 months. However, the biggest problem with this film is that the film doesn't focus in on the characters, it focuses in on what the characters stand for. And I think that that's an issue because it makes it hard to care about them. When John is kidnapped in the beginning of this film, you don't know anything about him except for that he seems like a sort of cocky teenager, and then the whole time he's kidnapped, I don't know about everyone else, but I personally didn't really care that much. I was more intrigued as to where the story was going and less about what actually happened to the people in it. Michelle Williams was this distraught mother who just wanted to take care of her children, but again, we didn't really learn much else about her as a person, and to me that's an issue because I want to care more about her. I want to care more about Mark Wahlberg. I want to care more about Getty, but the film doesn't focus on that. It focuses on one aspect of them. She's the distraught mother. Mark Wahlberg's the ex-CIA agent who's trying to find him. Getty is the insanely wealthy grandfather, and John is the boy that was kidnapped. They aren't much more than what those specific things are. That is all they are in the film, so it makes it feel more like I was just watching a sequence of events, wanting to see how it turned out, but not really caring about what happened to the people in the end. I just wanted to know what happened in the end, and I wasn't too worried about how they got to that point. And in a film that's supposed to be a big kidnap thriller, that's really important to care because that's what adds the thrills to those sequences. It's what makes it exciting when they're hunting for someone, when they have a lead, when something happens, but instead it was more just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. We'll see where that goes, and then we'll get to the end of the movie eventually, right? And I really think that that's a big issue because in a film that's supposed to make you be on the edge of your seat, this film didn't do that at all for me. And then the film also is just riddled with plot holes. And I don't mean like little tiny like, ooh, what was the deal with that? I'm talking plot holes that when this movie ended, me and my friends literally on the drive home talked about plot holes for 15 minutes straight in this film of things that just kind of didn't make all that much sense. And it just kind of bugged me because I know this film had to be reshot and it had a lot of problems, but I really feel like if they would have just pushed it back just a little bit, just a smidge, they could have maybe made this film better. I'm gonna give All the Money in the World a C. This movie is perfectly fine. It has a lot of solid performances, but I don't really know if it's worth seeing in theaters. I think the job done by Ridley Scott is very admirable, and I think it is a solid film that just needed more polish in its script, and it really could have been a truly great crime thriller, but I think it just lacked in the character development, which is so important in a story like that. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of All the Money in the World, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and I hope to see you guys later.